Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am DraftKings picks and preview coming to you on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday, and we had the day off on Monday. It was very nice. The column is up right now on DKPlaybook.com. The cheat sheet will be up Wednesday afternoon for all my DraftKings picks. If you want the bets for the week, it's up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. Remember, subscribe to the pod, tell a friend, give a like, do what you can to spread the word about the PME. Joining me on the line, the guy that wins all the monies in the DK. It doesn't matter whether it's golf or football. As long as he's on the show, he's winning this week. Fanvice.com, Ben Rasa. What's up?
Oh, what's going on, man? Welcome back. I saw you talking to literally everyone in Minnesota simultaneously. How was it up there?
It was tiresome. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. I still have the bags underneath my eyes. So, I mean, makeup works for me, but I don't know. I was pretty tired. Not going to lie to you.
Yeah, no, it was. It looked tiring. You were all over the place.
I got home Saturday, basically went immediately to sleep, and woke up on 2 o'clock at 2 o'clock on Sunday to watch the end of the golf and like stumble through the Super Bowl. It was, I don't know, it was fun. And if people want to go back and check it out, there are actually some really decent interviews. But it's weird when you get like you don't know who's sitting down next to you. You got 10 minutes to talk to them, and you know when you got someone like Jordan Howard who literally doesn't say anything, you're just like, oh, where are you from, man?
Jordan, I'm glad I don't have to think about that guy for a little while.
Oh, he'll be back in our lives soon enough, although he did say he does want to be a bell cow, but that's probably not going to happen.
No.
All right,
nope.
Let's talk golf. How pissed are you that it's this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be back on because you really do give a bump for some reason. Every time I come on, I do have a nice boost, but this week is not certainly not the fifth major here.
Well, do you dislike this tournament because of the TV coverage, because how hard it is to track, because it's 3 courses, because it's a 54-hole cut? Like, I think everyone has their different reasons of why they don't like this tournament. The weird thing is, everyone actually loves the course Pebble Beach, which is really strange.
Yeah, it's a combination of all those. Obviously, the TV coverage is awful. We don't have, shot tracker for 2 of the courses. It's a 3-day guaranteed rounds. The cut's 60 people. Not that that's a big deal, but it's just a lot of different things that I'm kind of trying to weigh here.
All right, so let's get into the pricing right away. There was a Twitter storm when the pricing was released about, like Ed Exley being like $7,400, Rafa Cabrera-Bello being down in the 6,000s with Henley and Russell Knox. The pricing is very soft, and because there's a 54-hole cut, normally in tournaments like this where you're guaranteed 3 rounds from everyone, it allows itself to a stars and scrubs roster construction, and then you're taking like losers at the bottom. I remember actually, I think I roster Ryan Armour here every single year, and it popped back in my mind this morning when I was thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah, he's always like the guy who's the lowest ranked player that I end up taking because he's great with wedges. And now he just wasn't even my radar this week. I probably have to put him on now, but we'll talk about him in a second. But what do you do with the pricing? Like, is it that outrageous that you're not going to play? No. Like, just deal with it. I mean, everyone's dealing with the same prices.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not thrilled about some of it where I'm kind of forced to make some stands that I wasn't looking to do with some guys that I think are mispriced just because their upside now is gigantic just because they don't have to come in 7th. They could get a T15, and it's really doing work for considering where they're priced. But yeah, I'll deal with it. Obviously, I'm certainly playing. I do think it even enhances stars and scrubs even more. You just have the ability to take 2 of the top 5 and then fill in not with, like you were talking about, not made up guys from LA Confidential, but actual people. You got RCB, you got Henley. We'll talk about, Knox is down there. Plenty of real legit players.
Well, when you have a week like this and everyone is very easily able to identify who basically the chalk is going to be because there's so much value down in the $6,000 range when you have guys who are top 50 in the world priced lower than guys that are ranked 3,000th in the world, you figure people are going to gravitate towards those guys. And there's like a handful, and there's like 4 that people are going to go to, and those guys are going to possess double-digit ownership. Like you say, you have to make some tough stands, and if that doesn't work out for you, and you mentioned like the example of Russell Henley this week. If Russell Henley goes off and you don't have him, you're probably not going to win because the top of the board is going to resemble basically everyone else's team. So do you just take a piece of each of those players, or do you make one of those concrete stands being like, no, I'm not taking Russell Knox here. Or I am taking Russell Knox because he's the one who's going to be owned the lowest of the 4, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough guys down there where you can get a little creative. I found reasonable pivots away from some of them. Obviously, I'm not making full stands where I have 0%, but I make enough teams where I can kind of come in slightly underweight if I want to, where if, say, RCB comes in seventh, I'm not dead, but maybe I still don't overweight where I have to allocate 60% of my lineups with him. So it's just a balance. You don't want to pick too many guys where you end up just raking yourself, but you don't have to make crazy stands where it's all or nothing with a couple guys in that range.
All right, let's talk about the courses. There are 3 of them in play, each of the 156 players in the field. The largest field that we'll see all year gets to rotate between the 3. Everyone is guaranteed 54 holes. The cut comes after Saturday, and the field will return to Pebble Beach for the final round. The top 60 in ties will end up making the cut. If you play in one and dones, the 60 to 70 range still gets paid. They just don't get to play or make up any more earnings when it gets down to that spot. Is there any sort of course allocation that you like a rotation that you like? Because Monterey Peninsula, generally speaking, if conditions are okay, will play the easiest despite being a par 71. There's a lot of scoring to be had at Monterey Peninsula. If the wind does pick up, I mean, you might want to be at Spyglass because it's tree line and the wind won't affect it as much as there aren't as many holes directly on the water. Do you look into this sort of thing, or is that just overthinking it at this point?
No, it's definitely something I'm considering. The weather, it's tough. It changes. It can, I've heard Saturday might have wind. That's a long way away. Stuff does change. So if there was no weather concerns, I would lean towards my guys playing Pebble on Saturday. I do like the idea of them playing 2 straight there. But I really don't think it's overly something that I consider. I will obviously stack guys. I think correlating, courses is a good idea. So I'll take a majority of my guys at one course on a given team just because, if they do end up getting the lucky draw, which we don't know, it can change, you're in a nice spot if they're all together.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of stacking, only because, like you said, you don't necessarily know what the correlation is going to be course to course to course. However, if there is a course that ends up just playing a lot easier than all the other ones, then you're in a prime position to take advantage of that. I mean, that's what we do with the tee draw sometimes, that you see that the wind is going to affect the late tee times, so you stack the early tee times. But I remember Drew Dinkmeyer having a lot of success really 2 weeks in a row at a major and then again in the $333 tournament by doing the anti-stack. And he just went on the other side of the draw. This is a lower probability play, but if it hits, I am literally the only person in the field that has it. So looking out for those correlations, I think, makes a lot of sense. Do you have a weekend approach for when it comes to these 3? Because everyone's going to get their holes in, then there's going to be a cut. How far away do you stay from people that are fringy on the cut line? Or can you exploit the lower ownership of those guys because people are a bit pensive with them?
Yeah, weekend golf with this is wild because, like you said, there's a cut. It's a balance. Again, you got to see what the weather is, but if it's fine, I want my guys Saturday playing Monterey, obviously. They would get an easier course. Hopefully, I would be taking guys that I think are pretty safe in terms of the cut. You don't want to play man down, and it's only 60 guys. So that's definitely something to consider. You can get, this happened a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of used Steele, Career Builder, and he had a good Saturday, and he got through the cut, and it was great on the weekend because he wasn't owned. So you can take a shot with if we have someone say like Day or Rom, who are not hovering around the cut line, but, I expect them to get it done if they're close. You can get them maybe at a little reduced ownership. So it's definitely a new wrinkle to weekend golf.
Let's jump into the stats. Fortunately, this is the last of the 3 tournament and 2.
Thank God.
And even the 2-course rotation. Now we're 1 course all the way out. There's no other courses that have multi-tracks in play, is there? I don't think there is.
I don't know of any. But
yeah, maybe they'll introduce some new ones later in the year just to screw with us all, because it's not a lot of fun. It's hard to figure out who to pick at what course, what day. There's no first-round leaders. It's a bummer, and this weekend golf gets all screwed up when there is the 3 tournaments in play. But stats, the one thing to note that if you're looking back on stats from this course, and I recommend that everyone goes to fantasynational.com, becoming a member, going back and digging through to see what people do well. But in terms of shot length data, strokes gained approaches, where these approaches are coming from, how far the drives are actually going in terms of where they're hitting hitting into the rough or onto the fairway. There is none at Spyglass or Monterey. So if you're looking at strokes gained from this tournament in the past, that is exclusive to Pebble Beach. So don't get it twisted. All these three courses, while they're short and have smaller greens, do not play exactly the same. You're going to hit an overwhelming amount of fairways at each of them. Easy to hit in fairways in terms of greens and regulation. It's way down compared to a standard event. I mean, Pebble Beach has 3,500 square foot greens, which is less than half the size of a regular tour event, which is kind of crazy. So greens and regulation are important, but they're just harder to hit here. So I'm actually relying a lot on approaches from 150 and in, so a lot of wedges, and I'm relying on short game a lot too, because guys inevitably are going to miss the green, and that's where strokes really go down the hill. Unless you're someone who gets a bit wild off the tee and hits it into the Pacific Ocean, you're going to muff chips, and that's really going to be the downfall of you here. Like, you can't be making big numbers at this course when there are so many scoreable holes. You have to at least be able to maintain where you're at in terms of double-digit below par scoring if you're going to miss these greens. So I like the short game wedge correlation, and I think that out of all, I wouldn't say all courses on tour this season, Heritage is probably number one in terms of this, but off the tee stuff matters, but a lot less than it does at a normal course.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that. You look at Spieth, you know, he won last year, and it kind of feeds into that. You know, he's a little wild off the tee. He can club down here, and he can rely on that short game around the green. I think it helps Day. It helps Patrick Reed. A lot of guys like that. So I'm right with you in terms of the stats.
And it's not to say that these bombers or guys that gain a ton of strokes off the tee can't do anything. Obviously, Dustin has won twice here before. John Rahm was T5 last season. Weirdly enough, it just this tournament, by and large, just lends itself to being a really good player overall. Like, when you look back at the top five last year, Spieth won, DJ, Day, and Rahm were all inside the top five. Like, I mean, now you have to figure out who's left over from that group if you actually want to build a complete roster, because obviously you can't roster all those guys. But it's just crazy to think so many elite talent end up rising to the top. The Masters is a weird corollary for this, shockingly enough, in terms of, like, all-around winners, and I think that has to do a lot with the short game and not bleeding away strokes down there. But for, like, the scrub players, I mentioned this to Feinberg, there's a lot of crossover with the Puerto Rico Open.
Oh boy. Well, Graham McDowell, who's someone I was going to mention as a flyer, he got cut in the Puerto Rico Open. I remember it well. That's interesting. That's not one I would have thought of.
Yeah, I mean, Chesson Hadley has won both. I believe D.A. Points has won both. It's just and I'm not saying that these guys are going to win this tournament, or guys that have played well in Puerto Rico are going to win this tournament, but it might spike you a top 20 or a top 10. And those are the guys that you're going to need to come through for you, because if you take any one of the top guys, then realistically, they should do well this week.
Yeah, no, I think, again, you know, you talk about kind of some of the winners here have been the best players. It just yields it again to stars and scrubs. It's really hard to get away from that this week. I know game theory-wise, it's probably interesting to go balanced, but, man, it's hard to imagine one of those top five not getting there.
All right, well, let's talk about the Big Five. Over $10,000. Dustin Johnson, two-time winner at this event, comes in number one. He was actually leading the U.S. Open in 2010 when Graham McDowell won at this course. Then he shot a final round 80 to come in sixth place, weirdly enough. So it was a tough one. Graham won at even that year. Don't expect it to be that hard. Dustin's 11-7. Rahm is 11-4. Rory, for the first time in America this year, 11-1. Then Day is 10-9, and Spieth is 10-7. I think that this is where you're really going. You're talking about, like, making your stand between, like, Henley and these lower guys, trying to really pick and choose. What do you do at the top? Because I think this is where it ends up becoming the most important. Do you just take the one who has the lowest ownership? Because you can make a case for any of these guys. The one that I actually don't like all that much, I know this is going to come back to burn me, I don't love Rory here.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously I was writing about this on FanVice. Dustin Johnson fits, you know, with the least amount of red flags. He kind of checks every box. So I think he's the safest. The other four, you know, you can obviously make a case, but they all have a glaring, in my opinion, kind of red flag. Rahm's been playing a ton.
Okay, let's go through each of these at a time. I'm with you that Dustin can almost play in sort of any conditions. He has experience clubbing down at this course. And then when we get into Jon Rahm, you're right. He has been playing a lot. He had a T5 here last year, though, and that was coming off his like first big win. Then he played Phoenix, then he did it again. So it's not like he's inexperienced. It's exactly the same schedule as he played last year. It's just where he relies so much. And even if you go back and look at it last week, the reason that he ended up doing so well was because of putting. His approaches were not great. I believe he lost 4 strokes to the field with his irons. That is the red flag for me for him here. If that doesn't rebound and he doesn't gain 6 strokes putting, he might not make the cut then.
Yeah, I mean, he's not doing it. You know, obviously he's unbelievable off the tee and he's putting really well. I'm interested to see, you mentioned the small greens. If he's scrambling, getting up and down, he's going to be relying on that flat stick again. And then Rory hasn't played here. I think that's a disadvantage, you know, in this tournament. It's a weird, you know, it's a pro-am, all that. Obviously, I still like Rory because I always kind of roll with him to an extent. But, yeah, that's a red flag for me. Day, what can you say? I mean, he's coming off the win, but at any point he could just be actually hurt. It's hard to tell what you're going to get with that guy. And then the guy, you know, who I'm still very interested in, Spieth, but obviously he has, I think, the most glaring issue. He can't putt, and he's going to turn it around. But if I don't know if that's this week.
So what do you do with Spieth then? Because over the past 4 tournaments, Spieth has lost an average of 2.2 strokes per event on the greens. However, if you look at the other side of it and you take putting out of the equation, he's actually been one of the best players off the tee with his iron, short game. And like the off the tee stuff is always the stuff that ends up screwing him and hurts him in a lot of these tournaments. And now it's the putting, which we kind of rely on him to be really good at. So I think you almost have to ride Spieth here. He is the defending champion. He's never played poorly at this course in the past. And if he putts like shit again, then, well, you're screwed. But you know, if you know that he's going to turn it around at some point, I feel like you kind of have to just be there the week before, because I don't even know if people are giving up on him yet. Like, it could turn into the thing where it's like, oh, Jordan Spieth sucks. Everyone else here is good. And everyone's like, oh, Jordan Spieth is a sneaky contrarian play. And then everyone just uses Jordan Spieth anyway. That's what happened last week.
Yeah, I know, with the Hideki ownership, which, while I think it depends on the stakes, but I do think a lot of casual people, you know, if they played last week and Spieth burnt them, they're not going to want to go back. And yeah, he can't putt, but it, like you said, everything else is there. And when he corrects his putting, he's going to be fine. And that should be, this does seem like a get right spot. He's coming to a place he obviously likes. He likes these greens. So I have no problem with Spieth. You compare 2 of these guys, I'm certainly going to be doing that in a ton of lineups. Yeah, I think for me, Rahm's probably last. I don't love the course fit in terms of what he does. I do think he's not tiring out, but I do think it's a factor that he's played so much. And I think DJ's the safest. So for me, probably mix and match him, you know, put in some Rory just because he's Rory. And I think he's on a mission this year, I hope, because I'm sure I'll have plenty of them. And then Spieth's the wild card. And I have no doubt you got to be a week early, because if he comes out this week and he smokes it, you're too late. Next time he's in the field, he'll be back to where he was in terms of ownership and price.
Well, let's rank them 1 through 5 then. Not to say that anyone is a necessarily bad play, but in the order of preference that you have. For me, it is Spieth, Day, DJ, Rahm, and then Rory. It's the wind with Rory that really worries me. When you're playing on the coast, and we've seen him fade in final rounds, even in the Middle East. Once it starts getting a bit windy, he can't close. I mean, if you can't close out Hao Tong Lee, it's going to be tough to close out Spieth or Day or hope to God Brandt Snedeker. But we'll see when it comes to that. It's just I want to see him get over here first. I like him next week at Riviera. I think that sets up a lot better for him in terms of he can just bomb it off the tee and use his longer irons to his advantage, where it's a lot of wedge stuff here. And at the few courses where driving distance isn't the biggest factor, I do think that elevates Spieth up to a little bit, at least tee to green game, with DJ, with Day, and with all these guys. So I like Spieth the best, and then Jason Day. So 1 to 5, who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be, if I'm with you, if the wind does pick up, I'm going to have Rory second. If it doesn't, though, if it looks like a pretty fine, normal forecast, I would go Rory and Spieth are 1 and 2 for me. I may flip and flop them. Then it'd be Dustin Johnson, Day, and then Rahm.
Okay. Do you think that this next level, just the sub $10,000, the $9,000 area, is basically going to be unowned except for Phil, who's going to be highly popular, I think at least? It's just no one's going to own them because there's no need to pay down to that level?
Yes. I think Woodland, Grace, I think Paul Casey will get a little ownership. I mean, he's Paul Casey. He hasn't played, but he'll come in 7th because that's what he does. Phil should be popular, but I absolutely think that this is a dead range. These guys are in my opinion, slightly overpriced, and most people are just going to want to pay for two of the top guys and then fill in with all the easy value.
So who are the guys from this range that you would target? Is Phil actually someone that you would go out of your way to target? Because
God, I hope not.
He's coming off the great week, and he was gaining a ton of strokes through approach, and we know when his wedges are on, his short game is still really good. And it's a course where he's won 4 times. Let's not overlook that. I don't know how much I trust Woodland coming off the win. It seems like he's been building to this for so long that we're in a prime letdown spot. The one that no one is going to own from this range is Brendan Grace, but I don't even know if I can pull the trigger on him.
Yeah, that's more. And I feel like you're the Brendan Grace whisperer. I have no feel with that guy. I don't really want to go there. Phil, yeah, it does set up well. I could see it. I think I will throw him in some lineups again. I'll kind of correlate him with the Spieths of the world. Maybe Patrick Reed's, those guys, good around the green. Hopefully their wildness will be mitigated by not having to really, hit driver a ton and hit these easy fairways. Woodland, absolutely no interest. I'm with you. It's natural. That was an absurd Sunday. I do think we're in for a letdown. And he's 9,900. That's a little much.
Cantlay is $8,900. Everyone loves Patrick Cantlay, but he hasn't really played all that well so far this season. He's making cuts, but that's really about it. He's being priced up like he's someone that wins all the time, or at least comes inside the top 10 all the time. Do you think that he could be a potential trap at his price, or is he someone to look to knowing that this range is going to be kind of dead, and you know what his upside is, and you're just willing to live with that?
For me, I'm kind of steering clear. I don't love he's another one. When he hits a ton of greens, he's super good with the irons, but if he's scrambling a lot, and these are small greens, I don't love it. I do think he's kind of regressed. He was on a ridiculous run. He's a good player, but I would rather kind of bump down to the next Hadley, James Hahn kind of flyers there. And then, Snedeker, I think, is the obvious mid-range value.
Yeah, so that entire range when we talk about it starts with Cantlay at 89, then goes to Matt Kuchar at $8,800. Then Adam Scott at 87, playing for the first time this season. Perez is back from overseas. He is 86. Hadley is 85, who has 4 top 5s in his last 7 starts. In 3 starts at Pebble Beach, he has 2 top 10s. Has won the Puerto Rico Open as well. James Hahn, 84. Hostler, 83 for whatever reason. Kisner, 82. Snedeker, 81. Shez, coming off the playoff loss, is 8,000. 7,900 for Patrick Reed. I like a lot of guys in this range. And I think that if there ever was a time that you could go balanced, I think you could take 4 of these guys, potentially pay up for 1 and see what you're left over. I'm not sure exactly how much you have left, but you might have to roll the dice on someone at like $6,600. But I look at it. I like Kuchar this week. I love Perez this week. I adore Cheston Hadley. Kevin Kisner is someone no one is going to own and kind of sets up perfectly for this course when you really think about it in terms of wedges in short game and putting. Snedeker and Reed, obviously both. Reed is putting the lights out right now. He's sneakily playing well, always plays well at this event. And then you got Brandt Snedeker, who is a 2-time champion, is starting to regain his form. 4th week in a row. He's playing gain strokes with his irons for the first time all year last week. This is just a course that is it's home for him, and he needs to win here eventually to get into the Masters, so this could be a week for him. But if you just play those 6 guys, I know you're missing out on the top 5, and you know that one of those 5 is probably going to win, but if they don't, that could be the roster construction. You get 6 really good guys, and you have no ownership on them.
Yeah, this is kind of the risk reward. If you can get away with one of those top 5 not winning, you could be in huge advantage, because the overwhelming majority of teams will use at least one of them. And there are good guys in this mid-range. I still think with the value, I'm definitely going to have teams that have 3 or 4 of these guys, but I probably will still have one of those 5 up top on most. And yeah, it's interesting. I love Kisner, but he is lost. I keep looking to Snedeker. I keep looking to Reed, Hadley. I'm interested to see if he comes in under own. I think it's very possible.
Well, I think that he will. I'm looking at the Fantasy National ownership projections right now, and they're within like 2% of what everything's going to be. And when you look at this range, he is currently projected to have less ownership than James Hahn. So
yeah,
I'd rather have Kevin Kisner.
Yeah, Hans, he's a wild. I do like that you get 3 rounds because he's all over the map. But Kisner's a good player. At 10th last year, and he should set up well here. It makes sense that he would like this place. So Not a bad pivot if you think Snedeker is going to be, wildly owned, which I think he'll be pretty popular.
I don't know. I mean, is he the logical guy to drop down to, or do you think people will be on Patrick Reed?
I mean, I really like Reed too. I didn't think, I don't know. Maybe I have a bad read on Patrick Reed. I don't think people were really looking to him. He's playing better than I think people realize, but maybe that secret's starting to get out. I've been rostering him, and he hasn't been killing me, but it's not clicking yet. I keep expecting him to just break through. Hopefully it's this week because I'm going to use him.
The only thing I worry about with Patrick Reed, and I'm going to be using a ton of Patrick Reed as well, is that he's scoring on these par fours. The short game has been immaculate. The putting has actually turned itself around, and that was really his problem last year, is he couldn't putt. But when he is on his game, you think 100 to 150 yards and out, he's just sticking those wedges and making the 8-footers. I mean, when he was winning tournaments, that's what he was doing. But then all of a sudden, like, he's one of the lower ranked people in the field from that range over like the past 24 rounds. So he's playing well in spite of playing poorly with his wedges. If you can get that turned around. And he's one of the guys, we're talking about like elite players who win at this event. I mean, he is an elite player. If Patrick Reed won and he knocked off DJ in a head-to-head on Sunday, like, no one's going to be super surprised.
No, he's absolutely one of the more talented guys in the field. It's not a terrible field by any stretch, but he's a world-class player. I don't know. I mean, I think that's part of the reason I'm kind of, all over the map with Reed is I can't get, a good insight into why he's playing good, like you said, in spite of what he should be kind of wheeling and dealing with. So I'm hoping that regresses in a good way. Kind of like Spieth with the putter, in a way where it's like once he gets that going, and should be one of his strengths, I think we see him break through.
So in terms of the projected ownership right now, Snedeker is projected at 18, Chez Reavie is projected at 15, Patrick Reed 20%, and Kevin Chappell 11%. So that's the range where people are taking two big guys and dropping right down to there.
Huh, that's interesting. See, like, I have no interest in Chez. He's another one I feel let down.
Why no interest in Chez, though? Is it only because he came second last week? Because I think if he had come T13 last week, that people would be all over him now.
Yeah, it is that for me, which is counterintuitive, but I do. That was some putt, man, on Sunday. What a putt. He deserved. I kind of wanted. I was rooting for Woodland, but after he made that, I was like, Chez should get a win just for that. Yeah, I don't know. I just think, first of all, if he's 15%, that's just. I wouldn't mind him as a flyer if he was going to be, say 5%. But man, I would much rather have Snedeker or Reed at somewhat similar ownership.
Looking at Chez's stats from last week in terms of what he did strokes gained at each level, he gained 5 strokes off the tee, only 1 through approach, over 6 around the greens, and 3 putting. It was sort of like an optimal week for him because the 2 weeks before he came 18th and 36 at Sony and Career Builder, and he lost a combined 8 strokes to the field on the green. So even if he regresses back to normal, you're now paying a premium for him with so many good players below him that I don't think that he's an easy fade, but I think you're right. At his ownership, you can just look in a different direction.
Yeah, no, it's not a issue, and again, there's so many guys. It's not like he's competing against one guy. I see multiple people in the same range that I'd rather have. It's hard to imagine him beating all of them.
Adam Scott, 8,700.
I thought we were almost past it. I was hoping I could slide without having to talk about him.
Well, I mean, you can say the same thing as everyone else is saying, that Adam Scott hasn't played in ages. The last time that we saw him in Australia, he was garbage. And, he's overpriced. The only positive you can say about Adam Scott right now is that he used to be the #1 player in the world. We know he can win. He can't putt, which is probably not nice to say about him. He's an excellent, links-style golfer up against the ocean. There are positives for him, just we haven't seen him play well in, a year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm still caught up to an extent in the old Adam Scott because I will have a couple flyers. I don't think you're going to need that much to get overweight on him. And sometimes, I've been saying this with Adam Scott and it doesn't work. When you've been so bad, taking a break can only be a good thing. Maybe he comes back with a different focus. Maybe he's back in form. Definitely not someone I think you use in a core, but if you're playing a bunch of teams on talent alone, I don't mind a couple shares, but I'm skeptical.
Of those low-owned guys, would you be more willing to play Adam Scott or Brennan Grace?
Adam Scott.
I think I will too. And if I build 20 lineups for the 20 max $4, I'll probably use them in 2. We have them projected right now on Fantasy National at 5%, so I'm double the field in terms of ownership.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to, if Adam Scott gets cut this week, my week is certainly not going to be over. And if he plays really well, I'll probably be at a slight advantage just because you don't need much to have overweight on that guy.
Yeah, I don't have the highest expectations when it comes to Adam Scott, but again, if he's the guy who pops, and we're talking about elite players constantly winning this event, I mean, if you're going to give me the choice between Adam Scott and Chez Reavie, I mean, Reavie's playing a lot better. We have the recency bias built in of watching him play well, especially last week, but we know that Adam Scott is intuitively the better player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tend to lean with that a little more than most, I think.
All right, let's drop into the $7,000 area. I mentioned Kevin Chappell was going to be around 11% ownership. And hey, this is a course where Jason Day plays well, which theoretically means this is a course where Kevin Chappell will play well too. That's just how it goes. That's the correlation that you want to go with. But below him, we're looking at Bubba Watson. He is $7,800. Nick Watney, who's a former winner of this event and even played well here last year, 77. Walker's won here before, 77. Sabatini, 76, along with Pillar. Taylor, Seamus Power, Andrew Putnam. Then we go down to Shane Lowry, Paul Dunn, Brian Gay, Jerry Kelly, VJ Singh, and Cody Gribble at $7,500. I do not have super strong takes on anyone in this range, really, but I punched in my custom stat model on Fantasy National, and the name that it kept spitting out to me was Kevin Na.
Ooh. Kevin Na. I had a lot of Kevin Na last week, and it was all right, but... that's interesting. I thought you were going to say Nick Taylor, sticking to your brand. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have strong takes here either. I guess Shane Lowry is someone kind of interested in. I hope it's windy.
What about Watney?
Yeah, man, I feel like I missed the boat. I know he hasn't been popular, but I had almost been on him a couple times this year at Career Builder, where he was wildly 0% owned, basically. He's got good history. Yeah, second in 2015. He played well here last year. I think he was like a top 20. God, I don't mind it, but he's still a little overpriced for I wish he was more, in that lower 7 range. With so much value, I think you can easily make it work. But this is a range where I'm not going to be really doing much because I just prefer spending that money up to the guys we just talked about.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. Well, you can fit in Nick Watney. There's no reason to really go to him just for the sake of doing it. Although he has come top 60 in his past 3 tournaments, no big finishes. But you mentioned the good course history here, and he seems to go in and out each week in terms of gaining strokes with his irons and then losing them back to the field. The one thing that he actually consistently does do well is putt. And we've seen good putters win here in the past, like him.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you told me that Nick Watney plays really well this week and even contends, I wouldn't be stunned. But again, it's just he's priced so close to Patrick Reed, Snedeker, Chappell, guys that I just kind of have a couple tiers above him in terms of just raw talent. I think it's borderline an unnecessary risk. Again, you don't have to allocate a ton. So if you do like the line on him, maybe I throw him in, I was saying before, I will probably try to do some course stacks. When you do that, you shrink your player pool. You don't have many viable guys to choose from. So there's a possibility he's the last man in on, say, a Spyglass Saturday team or something like that.
How about the next level down with the $7,500 players? Because, again, we're talking about like VJ Singh, and Jerry Kelly's kind of interesting, weirdly enough. He just won on the senior tour, and he's played well. He played well at the Sony. He hits wedges like no one's business. And if there's a place where like Senors can compete, it's at a short course like this. So I'm not going to be using Jerry Kelly, but I understand why people could be intrigued by him this week. But Paul Dunn is clearly the best player of this bunch. He's playing in the U.S. for the first time this season. We've seen him pop on the Euro Tour. We've seen him pop at Open Championships before. He's a young guy coming over, playing the course for the first time. Do you have any interest in him? Or, again, is that just an unnecessary risk with Shane Lowry $100 more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is both. I love Paul Dunn in life. I'm a big fan. I play him in the Euro stuff all the time. I think it's a little early, like you mentioned, coming over. Not sure what we can really expect. A flyer or two maybe just to be different, but I don't really see much of a need to go there. For me, again, this isn't a great range. I just play Kevin Streelman every week.
So do I, and it always works.
Mostly in cash. Yeah, it just works. It comes out fine. He never does anything great, but he never kills me. Good results here. So, yeah, 7,300. I would just rather bump down and play him again.
Yeah, tee to green, Kevin Streelman has been super legit over his past 24 rounds. He is 5th in this field in ball striking. He's 12th. Off the tee, he's 11th. With strokes gained approach, he's 12th. On par 4 scoring, he's inside the top 10. The only thing the guy can't do is putt. However, because of Fantasy National, I can go back and look at these strokes gained stats, at least on the Pebble Beach course. On the Golf Links course, in the 6 times he's played this event, he has gained over 2 strokes 3 times, been in the positive 4 times on those greens, and he's had the results that have matched it. Now that he's playing somewhat the best as he has in a really long time, like, I know we talked about Paul Dunn and Shane Lowry, Kevin Chappell, and Nick Watney, like, it almost seems like there's no reason to use those guys when you can just use Kevin Streelman in this spot. And we know, listen, the year that he won at the Valspar, he was all wedges, all putts, boom, basically walking off the course. He can score in bunches. If his par 5 scoring was a little bit better, I think he'd be an absolute lock, but I just don't see a way you can get away from him.
Yeah, I mean, and he's playing, I've been looking obviously each week, like most, I look at the course history, look what he's done. He's just playing better than, I had some hesitations even last week. He didn't have great course history, but he's playing well enough where I kind of trust him everywhere. And this is a place that sets up well. So I have absolutely no problem with him. He's just very reliable. Not the highest upside guy. I don't know, how high that ceiling is, but you don't need much. At 7,300, I just expect him to be a nice kind of staple of the teams that I make.
I will say the chalk in this range, at least projected ownership right now, Streelman comes in the highest of these low $7,000 guys. He's at 15%. Charlie Hoffman at the same price is 12.4%. And the other big one is J.B. Holmes at 11%, who, listen, the guy putts on POA. That's well known about him, and he can hit a wedge. And I'm actually shocked he's at 11%. I actually would figure it'd be much lower than that because turns out he's the new Ian Poulter. Everyone just hates his guts.
Yeah, well, Norin should hate his guts, but it's not easy to figure out why. I don't really love him. I get it because he's another one. He benefits from, even though he's a bomber, he actually benefits from it being a short course because he doesn't have the opportunity to do stupid stuff off the tee. And yeah, he putts well. The thing that I'm a little concerned, he's cut last week. He played great 2 weeks ago. That's because he literally had the best putting performance he'll ever have. I'm not sure if we can expect that.
You know what? I can actually look into that to see if it is. This is why everyone needs to get the Fantasy National site. I can just see if it is the best one of all time in his career. Let's see. Because he gained over 10 strokes putting, which is abnormal.
That's...
I mean, last year at the Quicken Loans Championship, he lost 7.5 strokes putting in 2 rounds.
See, that's more what I remember him for. It's not even that just him gaining strokes is an anomaly. Never mind that many. It was absurd how he was just on fire with the putter, and I think that's inflated kind of his recent form.
Okay, so here's how it goes. J.B. Holmes, 2008, Farmers Insurance Open, 10.4 strokes gained putting is the highest of his career, the second highest putting performance he's ever had at any measured tournament at least. The 2005 BMW Championship, 7.9 strokes gained putting, and before that it was at Bridgestone. He gained 6.9 strokes putting on the field and came 26th. How is that possible?
That sounds like some OB. My God, yeah, I just... That's what I'm saying. It was such a ridiculous performance on the greens from a guy that we're not going to see that much. I know he likes the surface, but I still am a little skeptical. The
other guys garnering a bit of ownership: Stu Cink at $7,300, have him around 8%. Steve Stricker around 7%, but at the same number, 15% Chris Kirk. I love Chris Kirk this week. I'm not going to be scared off by that ownership. I think he's setting up really well. He's playing really well right now. He's sort of like the cheaper Cheston Hadley. And the short game's not bad. We just know that Chris Kirk has trouble putting from time to time. Not that he's a disaster on the greens. It's just he's slightly below average. If he can get a quick uptick in that, he's scoring on par 4s. He's hitting his irons really, really well. And his biggest downside, the off-the-tee stuff, is somewhat mitigated this week. So I really like Chris Kirk here.
Yeah, no problem with Kirk. I'm interested to see where his ownership ultimately ends up, just because, there's a lot of people, RCB in particular, right, a couple $100 less. Bryson's down there as well. Vaughn Taylor, who's a champ. I don't mind him. I don't want chalk Chris Kirk, but if he comes in at a decent ownership, which I think he will, I definitely have some interest there.
Well, the good thing about Chris Kirk is that you're going to know how he's going to do after about 5 holes. because he's going to be in the running for first round leader, or he's going to end up like plus 17 for the week. So at least he's one of those guys you can get out of your system on Thursday, whether he's going to be good or whether he's going to be bad.
Yeah, no, that is true. Chris Kirk rarely rallies, so we'll see. I mean, you do get 3 rounds that you can use that to kind of
justify anything. You can use that to justify any pick this week.
You literally, you know, it's such a. This is why this week isn't my favorite, because it's just like, well, you get 3 rounds. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it's a bad thing. It's not. Yeah. It's a bad thing for. I think it kind of concentrates the field a little bit more because no one's going to be able to. It's almost like when you have those no-cut events, and it's like, oh, sweet, I'm in first place, and then you check back in 15 minutes later, it's like, oh, I'm out of the money. Great.
Oh yeah, it makes the volatility worse. Part of me makes me think like, oh, this is great. I can target like Trey Mullinax because he's wild, and I know if he even gets cut, you know, I get 3 rounds. But if he's playing wildly, I don't want even 3 rounds. That's not going to help me, and then he's cut. So it's. Sometimes I think people take it a little too far where they just start playing crazy people because they get an extra round. And if they're playing bad, that doesn't really help you.
All right, some other guys very quickly. Let's just go rapid fire through them in the low $7,000 area that I've noticed that I kind of like. Austin Cook at $7,000, Scott Piercy at $7,000.
Yeah, Scott Piercy last week really did not help me.
Oh, big. Listen, I went in on Scott Piercy as well, but the Scott Piercy volatility is a real thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I can speak to that. Yeah, he can't putt. I don't mind him. You kind of, like you said, you have to take the good with the bad. So I was really disappointed. I really thought he was going to play great last week. I had him on a lot of stuff.
I have Austin Cook projected at 17% right now. Does that make him an insta-fade?
I'm not an Austin Cook guy, so yeah, for me, it's pretty close to an insta-fade. I think he creeps towards 20% personally. Like, people like him. He's playing well. I do think the price is tempting. I wish he was more. He was getting, in my opinion, wildly overpriced for a couple weeks. Now he's more back where I think he belongs. So I don't hate it, but I'm just gonna look elsewhere. I think there's plenty of other guys down here.
I have Piercy coming in at around 9%, and then Sam Saunders at like 4%. I kind of like Sam Saunders here. Another guy, a Puerto Rico Open superstar.
Yeah, Sam Saunders every so often will just be like 13 under through 36 holes, and then, you know, he'll fade. But
do a Sam Saunders thing.
Yeah, he'll do it. Exactly. Sam Saunders, you kind of, once in a while he'll pop. I'm not sure it's this week, but again, I have to imagine he's not going to be popular at all.
Well, he's gained strokes off the tee in 3 consecutive tournaments. He's gained strokes through approach in 3 consecutive tournaments, and he almost always gains strokes around the green. It's always whether it's wishy-washy with the putter. Now, the POA, it's really hard to say because certain people really seem to have a feel for how you need to putt on this. Brandt Snedeker obviously being the big man on this, although Russell Henley has great POA putting splits as well, as does Sang Moon Bae, who we didn't even mention, but that's from like 55 years ago before he went into military service. But I look at it, if he's not going to be one of the chalky guys and you're looking to get away from some of the big ownership where it's all going to concentrate down at this range, I think Sam Saunders is an okay play, despite not having the pedigree of 8 other people who are down here with him.
Yeah, I think, the one thing I like about a guy like that is if you get him right, you get rewarded because he can really smash it. He has the upside. It's dangerous, there's no doubt. But, I don't mind him. Like I said, I think Cabrera Bello at 6,900 is the obvious choice. I don't think that's any secret. Different style. He's more reliable, and then Sam Saunders is a total wild card.
So people are trying to figure out why Rafa Cabrera Bello, one of the elite players in the world, is priced so lowly. And I mean, I have no real insights to the DraftKings algorithm, but just seeing it week to week to week to week, it seems to weight course history when it's a big negative or a big positive. That becomes the determining factor. And if you go back and look at how Rafa Cabrera Bello has played here, he either hasn't played, or if you go back even farther, then you're looking at miscut. So I understand why he's this low, but what do you think his overall ownership ends up being?
I think, depends on the stakes. The higher his stakes, the higher he'll be.
Sure.
I think there's a good chance we see him around 30% though.
I don't think so. And
really?
This is why. This is a big, I'm talking about like the $4 here.
That's what I was kind of thinking of.
With the max entries, 100 grand for first prize, you're going to get so many post-football people just kind of testing the waters when it comes to golf this week. I feel like this is going to be a very public tournament, and I'm not entirely sure if the general public even knows who Rafa Cabrera-Bello is. So I think that might actually push down his ownership 5 points lower than maybe what people might project it to be.
Yeah,
maybe.
I do think that. I think that's part of it. I do think, though, people will look and they say, oh, 8 of 8 cuts made. They won't even realize that's all in Europe. And that will be kind of a bonus for him. So I do think it works both ways. Same if you sort by the fantasy points per game. You know, he's way up above most guys in that range because he's doing it at different tournaments. So I do think those things can mitigate it the other way. But there's some truth to that. A lot of people don't know who he is, and they want to roster guys they've heard of.
Can you see going a full-out fade on Cabrera-Bello? Because I can, because I really like DeChambeau at the same price, and I really like Ryan Armour at the same price. And apparently everyone else loves Jason Kokrak. We have him projected for like 17% right now. That's kind of crazy.
So, like I said, it's interesting because you just talked about it. You can do it and feel somewhat – there are reasonable guys next to him that, you know, it's not like you're taking someone who has no chance. I personally know there's no chance that I fade him. Definitely not 100%. I may come in slightly underweight, depending on how high he creeps up in certain tournaments. But I just think Henley's more of a guy that, another one who I expect to be super popular. I think there's reasonable pivots there, and I think there's a real chance. The range of outcomes for Henley is pretty big, in my opinion.
So the guys that are down there in terms of ownership, you mentioned Russell Henley. Russell Knox is down there at $6,700. Graham McDowell will garner ownership just because of course history here. And Hollywood Hoagie is the other one. I love Tom Hoagie this week. I love Tom Hoagie every week, but if he can not lose every stroke in the world with his putter, he's going to be fine. He's played well at this tournament before too.
I could see that. I see why he would, but that's a guy I never end up playing him, and he actually does good sometimes. So don't mind it. I like Aaron Wise. I'll roll with the wild card. He's all over the map, but plenty of firepower. Him and Maverick. I don't mind taking flyers on them if you want to get away from Henley.
Do you think that we should be getting away from Henley? Because I mean, I'm never really the big. You talk about how like you really can't get a feel for Brendan Grace. I can't get a feel for Russell Henley ever. The only time that I ever really try to use him is when no one else is using him. I just find that even though he comes through in some chalk spots, that just chalk Henley is never for me.
Yeah, chalk Henley's never take it from someone who uses him all the time. Chalk Henley's not what you want to do. I'm definitely closer to moving off of him than RCB. I don't think you can. I mean, obviously, I think the optimal play is to use both of them and pair them with 2 of the guys up top and fill in with that mid range.
Would you do that in cash games? Would you use Henley, Cabrera-Bello, 2 of the top guys, and like Snedeker and Reed?
Yes, that is what I'm doing in cash games.
Okay.
Unless the weather changes that, but yeah, that is my plan. In tournaments, though, I do think with the Henley definitely has. If Henley got cut, I would not be shocked. And if he's going to garner that type of ownership, there are plenty of reasonable guys. Billy Horschel is another one. He's just chilling down there. And these guys are basically the flat min, so you don't need them to do much. I don't mind looking for pivots. I think you have to take a stand on one of them, not full fade, but you can't just mirror the field. There's too many people that are going to do that.
All right, so I think we've talked about just about everyone in the field at this point. Top 3 core players for you this week at the Pro-Am.
So we got Patrick Reed, Snedeker, and God, I don't want to say Spieth. You know what? It's Kevin Streelman.
Yeah, we have like basically the same team.
Hey, well, good. Hopefully, I'll see you up top, not towards the bottom.
Where do you think? Because I'm going to use a ton of Chesson Hadley too. I will probably not do as many two top-end stacks. I'm probably going to try to target this middle area more than most people just because I like a lot of it's not even that there's a lot of value there. It's just I think there are guys there that can really pop this week, and this course sets up well for them. And if I can get the guy right at the top, and again, that's Jordan Spieth for me, that I think I can have an advantage on the field because everyone's going to double up, and they might miss out on some of these guys. Obviously, no one's going to miss out on Reed and Snedeker because we just went through what their ownership is going to be. But even if it's a Chris Kirk who ends up coming up big for me, or it's Matt Kuchar, or Adam Scott, God forbid, comes top 5, you're like, ooh, now we're talking. I just need to get the winner, and we're good to go.
Yeah, you need to do something. I'm going to have to tailor. There are going to be teams where I kind of follow the pack, and I'll either have to leave some money on the table or find a guy who no one's going to be on to an extent, because you have to find a way to differentiate. The way you're talking about is a natural differentiation point. I don't think a lot of people are going to do that. And so if you get that right and someone in that 8K tier can take out one of the 4 of the 5 up top, you would be at a huge advantage if you get Spieth right.
All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. You can follow Ben on Twitter at JazzRazDFS. Check out all of his work at fanvice.com. Ben, I know you guys got live shows on the go at Fanvice and Slack chat, so tell everyone about it.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff over there. Slack chat is great. You get in, talk to us, talk to the community. Plenty of shows behind the paywall, my articles, projections. A lot of fun, obviously. So if you want to give it a try, sign up for a week, a month, come check us out.
I always find that I end up having better weeks. I mean, obviously I do the show every week, so I get to kind of hash it out with someone. But even when I get into huge Twitter convos with multiple people about, hey, this guy and this guy and this guy, do you find that the Slack chat really does help out a lot, just getting a different perspective from people coming in?
It really does. It's honestly because you just see things from a different vantage point, and it's just like, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but I didn't even consider. Now I kind of see maybe people will build like that. So even if you pick up 1 or 2 things a week that you haven't thought of, it's certainly worth it for me. I love that part.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter at @ThePME. Remember, subscribe to Fantasy National. Become a member today. Ownership projections, lineup generator, custom stat model, the best rolling stats in the business, and it's color-coded. So it's super easy to use. So if you're someone who can't read or doesn't understand numbers like me, the colors really help. So you can do that at fantasynational.com, weekly, monthly, yearly, doesn't matter. You can look into all the different membership options. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn for all the audio versions. Leave a review, takes 5 seconds, really goes a long way. And the DraftKings YouTube page for all of my video content, cheat sheet write-ups, all up on DKPlaybook.com, bets on my Facebook page, facebook.com/ThePME. It's a lot to do. So if you just do one of them, it's probably good enough anyway. But good luck at the Pro-Am. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.